The day I had a miscarriage. My husband's first love was giving birth, and he went to be her midwife. In those days when I was missing, he never called me, not even once, until I brought up divorce. He said, "Anna, I was wrong. Can we not get a divorce? But my name isn't Anna." Anna, that's his sweetheart. On the day I miscarried, I called Leo countless times, but no one answered. It wasn't until the next day that I got through the first call. Before I could even speak, I heard a woman's voice on the other end say, "Leo, it hurts." Then I heard him softly comforting her. His voice was so low, I could barely make it out. In just a few seconds, he hung up. At that moment, my heart felt like it was being squeezed by a giant hand. I couldn't breathe. The events of this day and night were really something. Leo and I had planned to go to my dad's house together, but I couldn't reach him. I had someone track his location. When I found him, he was outside the delivery room, sweating nervously, like a father waiting for his newborn. But the woman in the delivery room wasn't his wife. I walked up to him, stood in front of him. Before I could say anything, he said, "Anna, I can't go home with you." There were pregnant women all around. I didn't want to cause a scene. I quietly left the hospital, went to my dad's house alone. My dad's lover was already comfortably settled in, and when I walked in, she sarcastically ridiculed me. I just glanced at her and ignored her. I went upstairs, told my dad why I was there, but he said, "A married daughter is like spilled water. There's no reason to ask for money from home." But before I got married, he didn't say that. He said if I got married within a week, he'd give me half the shares. I looked at him and laughed quietly. I told him, one word at a time, that all of this was left to me by my mom. Something must have angered him. He picked up the teapot on the table and threw it at me. I instinctively stepped back, but tripped over his lover's son. Blood started flowing down my lower body. The house was in chaos. I called Leo again, but no one answered. Then I called for an ambulance. By the time the doctor carried me out, I was unconscious. When I woke up, a nurse was changing my drip. I grabbed her sleeve and asked softly, "Is the baby still there?" She looked down and shook her head. In that moment, the giant stone hanging in my heart crashed down, hurting me deeply. It shattered me. At that moment, I thought of Leo. At that moment, he was with another woman, having her baby, and my baby was gone. Tears rolled down my cheeks, the pain making me realize even more clearly. Leo doesn't love me. I stayed in the hospital for a whole week. Other than the one call I got through, Leo didn't call me back. Not even once, not a single message. And my so-called family didn't come to see me either. I handled the discharge paperwork by myself, stayed at home for another 5 days. Leo finally came back. He opened the bedroom door, washed away his weariness, lifted the covers, and lay beside me. He held me in his arms, just like many times before. His kisses, one after another, fell on my face. I felt nauseated. I pushed him away, ran to the bathroom, bending over the toilet, dry heaving. The house was so silent, not a sound. At some point, Leo got me a glass of water, but just thinking that this hand had served another woman made me feel sick. I didn't take the water from him. I walked past him, folded the quilt on the bed, and was about to leave the bedroom. But he grabbed my hand. He asked, "Anna, what's wrong with you?" "I'm not upset," I responded softly. As I carried the quilt out, I said, "Leo, let's get a divorce." When I looked back, I saw a trace of impatience in his eyes. He walked over, looked me in the eyes, and asked, "Why, isn't our life good?" Hearing his words, I raised my head and asked, "Do you know how many years we've been married? Do you know why I married you? Or maybe you know that I'm actually your wife?" My questions grew louder and louder. Tears couldn't be held back, streaming down my face. I waited for Leo's answer, but he just frowned impatiently, reached for the quilt. When I stepped back, he said, "Stop it, it's late. Whatever it is, can we talk about it tomorrow? Are you annoyed with me? Am I the one who made you so tired? Do you know what I was doing while you were with another woman, having her baby?" He looked at me silently, not answering. I lowered my head and laughed, sarcasm spreading, but my heart felt like it was being squeezed by a giant hand. I could hardly breathe. I stopped looking at him, walked out of the bedroom. As I was about to enter the guest room, he held me tightly. He said, "I'm sorry, Anna. Can we not get a divorce?" In the dark, I lowered my head and said softly, "But Leo, my name isn't Anna." He always mixed up my name, whether it was Ella or Anna. At first, I thought he was just saying it heavily, so I never corrected him. Until that day, on the phone, I heard him say, "Anna, it doesn't hurt." His voice was so tender, just like when he whispered in my ear when we were intimate. It made me feel disgusted. That name was like a knife, constantly cutting into my heart, making it hard to breathe. I didn't care before because I didn't know. Whether high or low, I didn't mind. But now, suddenly, I mind. Leo, let go of me. He let go, and I opened the guest room door, shutting him outside. These past years felt like a dream, and now it's like the dream has been torn apart. My heart pounded heavily. I've already run out of tears and don't want to make a scene with him. I used to think that in time things would get better, but today, I finally realized that things can't go on like this. He's never let go of his first love, and my patience is wearing thin. It's only now that I realize, in these 3 years, he never cared about me. Not for a moment. Everything between Leo and me happened so fast. We met at a mixer. The first thing he said to me was, "Your colleague said you want to get married. I also need a spouse. Do you think I'd do?" Hearing his question, I instinctively took 2 steps back, staring at him in disbelief. Leo didn't know me, but I knew him. We went to the same middle and high school. He was always at the top of his class. The distance between us was immense. To me, he was unattainable. I looked at him and murmured, "Why me?" "Because you seem obedient." I thought obedient was a compliment. Only after getting married did I realize it meant easy to control. On the 7th day of knowing each other, we got our marriage certificate. Every moment since, I've hoped he would ask me why I married him so quickly, but he never did. He rarely even came home. During holidays, it was always just me visiting his mom, and his mom would always nag me about having children. I talked to Leo about it. He said, "It's not the time yet. Let's wait." I thought he didn't like kids. Maybe he was worried they'd burden him. But now I know what he was waiting for. He was waiting for Anna, waiting for her to get divorced, to help her take care of her kid. Thinking of this, I felt more and more suffocated. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. The next morning, there was some noise outside. I thought something had exploded. When I went out, I saw Leo holding a plate of burnt eggs and charred vegetables. He frowned, staring at the mess on the table, lost in thought. But the sight made me even more sad. Since marrying Leo, I've been working and taking care of the house. Every morning, I'd wake up at 7 to cook. Leo has a sensitive stomach and doesn't like breakfast. He's picky and needs vegetables in the morning. I got countless burns learning to cook, but he never noticed. Year after year, it went on like this. Leo looked at me as if wanting to say something. Before he could, I went back to the bedroom. I packed a few clothes and dragged out my suitcase. Seeing Leo come in, I closed my suitcase. Looking up at him, he smiled and said, "Ella, let's eat." When I didn't move, he took my wrist. "Don't act up, we." Before he could finish, I shook him off impatiently. "Leo, do you even know what I like or don't like?" He didn't know. Over the years, I'd abandoned almost all my preferences. From food to clothes, I adhered to his tastes. It takes 21 days to form a habit. But for me, I did this for 3 long years. In these years, I never leveraged Leo's status, never took advantage of him. Yet he still didn't understand why I agreed to marry him so quickly. I took a step back, putting some distance between us. There was no emotion in my eyes as I stared directly at him. We stayed silent for a while. Then he finally spoke. "Ella, can you stop this?" "Okay," I responded, seeing his sigh of relief. Just as he sat down, I brought up the previous topic again. "Leo, we can't go on like this. Let's end it." When I left home, I wandered aimlessly, not knowing where to go. Eventually, I found a nearby hotel to stay in. I've lived in this city for 26 years, yet I had nowhere to call home. It's quite laughable. Days passed. I rented an apartment and messaged Leo, asking when he'd have time to finalize the divorce. He didn't reply. I went to find him at home, and as I opened the door, I saw Anna in the living room, feeding her baby. Tiny clothes were scattered everywhere. If I hadn't been the one to open the door, I would have thought I entered the wrong place. Leo said he wouldn't divorce, but he still brought her into our home. Anna wore my nightgown, my slippers, even the cup on the coffee table was mine. At that moment, I was too disgusted to speak. I stood there, stunned. She got up, walked over, and softly said, "You're looking for Leo, right? He's out. You'll have to wait about half an hour." Her tone was gentle, with a smile. My bitter words got stuck in my throat, not coming out. She acted like the hostess, entertaining a guest. Yet she didn't know this used to be my home. I stood there, hearing the elevator. I turned to see Leo walking over. One hand held baby formula and diapers, the other held baby clothes. Anna naturally took them and placed them on the couch, like a loving couple. Seeing this, I couldn't help but laugh out loud, sarcasm dripping from my tone. Staring straight at Leo, I asked, "Leo, you couldn't wait to bring her home, could you? We're not even divorced yet. Ella, let's talk in the bedroom." At that moment, He was afraid Anna might hear something unpleasant from me. He didn't want to dirty her ears. He grabbed my wrist and pulled me into the bedroom. When the door closed, the crying of the child and the soothing sounds were shut out. I stood face to face with him. There was no emotion in his eyes. Or maybe he didn't want to show any emotion in front of me. After a long pause, he finally said, "Anna has nowhere to go. She's just staying with us for a few days until she finds a place. I promise." I cut him off before he could finish. "Leo, is this your only property?" I asked. He was speechless. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. He couldn't explain anything, because there was no explanation. I laughed softly and took a step back to distance myself from him. Before coming to see him, I still had hope. I thought that if Leo never talked to Anna again, I could pretend none of this had happened. But it had happened. He loved her. Nothing could change that. "Leo, admit it. You still love her, don't you?" I stared straight at him, but he didn't dare to meet my eyes. His every silent second felt like a sharp blade, tearing my heart apart. In that moment, I understood. Words were meaningless. The suffocation in my chest made my voice hoarse. "Leo, we're about to get divorced. Don't you want to know why I married you in the first place?" He looked down at my eyes and softly asked, "Why?" "Because I liked you. I liked you, Leo. In high school, I walked every path you walked. I watched you play basketball with others. When I heard you were applying to Harvard, I studied like crazy. Thankfully, I barely made it. In your light, I was always dim. I never imagined you'd ever notice me. I just wanted to always stay behind you. When you mentioned marriage to me, I had hope. I thought, maybe over time, you'd develop a little bit of affection for me. But it turns out, if you don't love someone, it doesn't change no matter how long you're together. Your heart and eyes are always full of Anna. Even if she was married before, even if the child in her arms is someone else's, you could treat it as your own." I opened the closet and saw it filled with children's clothes. Leo cherished Anna's child so much. And my child, who was lost before even forming, felt like a sacrifice, a tribute to their love. I rummaged through the clothes, tears sliding down my face. Leo stood behind me, silent and still. I pulled out a large suitcase, threw my belongings into it, and started packing my jewelry and cosmetics. But my skincare products were missing from the table. Before I could turn to ask Leo, there was a knock on the door. The woman outside said, "Leo, I'm out of lotion. Can you go buy me a bottle?" It felt like a heavy stone crashing into my heart. Without my permission, he had given my things away. My belongings were that worthless to him. He flusteredly explained, but his words were so empty. "She came too quickly. She didn't have time to buy." I pretended not to care, but tears fell first. Wiping them away, I turned to face him. "Do you like children? Or do you only like Anna's child?" He didn't answer, but it didn't matter anymore. The answer wasn't important. I closed the suitcase, took out the divorce papers from my bag, and placed them on the table. "Sign it, and let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Ella, I'll send Anna away soon." Hearing this, I frowned impatiently. "That's between you two. It's got nothing to do with me." I pulled my suitcase out. Anna was standing at the door. Seeing me, she gave a small smile. She walked up and naturally put her hand on Leo's arm. "Leo, can you buy me some lotion? I'm out." "Okay," he responded. Their conversation was so mundane, it made me sick to my stomach. Wanting to maintain my dignity, I pulled my suitcase downstairs and sat on a flower bed for a while to collect myself. Leo came down, car keys in hand. "Do you need?" I didn't wait for him to finish. I dragged my suitcase out of the neighborhood. "Yes." I didn't want to hear him speak. I hailed a cab and asked the driver to take me to my rental place. It was bare, with simple furniture and nothing else. I curled up on the sofa for a night before going out to buy supplies. Leo and I set a divorce date. He said he would pick me up. On that day, he parked downstairs. I walked down slowly, watching him leaning against the car, just like when we first got married, acting like a loving couple. He used to pick me up from work every day. If I took too long, he would wait in the garage and tell me, "Take your time, you won't be late." Suppressing the pain in my heart, I walked towards him. Maybe this would be the last time we met. I sat in the passenger seat, and we drove in silence to the Civil Affairs Bureau. He locked the car door and sat with me. Confused, I looked at him and heard him say, "Keep me company for just 5 minutes." In those 5 minutes, he asked, "Do you regret it?" Hearing his question, I laughed. "Leo, the biggest regret of my life was marrying you. It was the worst decision I've ever made. Marrying him brought no benefits. I willingly played housemaid for 3 years. He had power and status, but I never asked him for anything. I never used him to gain anything, but I lost a child. My child is the most innocent kid in the world." The moment I got the divorce certificate, I felt a sense of relief. He drove me back, and I took off my wedding ring, placing it in a box I had prepared. I handed it to him. "Leo, I'm returning this to you too. He stared at the ring box, his eyes suddenly reddening. At that moment, I found it laughable. After all these years of showing no love, now he wants to act. I opened the car door and got out, heading towards the apartment building. But then he caught up with me and said, Ella, I'll leave the house to you and move out. No need, Leo, I don't want it. I wouldn't go back there again in my life. Just knowing Anna lived there makes me uncomfortable. And what I need isn't just a house. It's the company my dad has control over. Back then, he tricked me into signing a share transfer agreement and kicked me out of the company. I thought Leo could help me, but he chose to ignore it. I curled up on the sofa, staring at the white wall, my hands clenched tightly, nails digging into my palms. And I didn't even notice. Even if I have nothing, life has to go on. I still didn't know where to start solving the current problem. Before I could react, I heard a knock on the door. When I opened it, I thought I was seeing things. It was Logan, who I grew up with. He had been abroad all this time, and I had no idea he was back. He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes, without saying a word. I stepped back, letting him in, joking. You heard about my divorce and came back specially to congratulate me. He looked around angrily. Where's Leo? He asked. I closed the door, replying casually, at his house. Where else would he be? Logan made a move to go find him. I grabbed his wrist, shaking my head. Forget it. Don't cause trouble. Please, I'm begging you. Ella, why didn't you come to me when you were suffering? I could have had your back. His voice was full of pain, and my nose stung, tears rolling down my cheeks. And that sentence, it made me freeze in place. All these years, he was the only one who ever said he'd stand up for me, but I had gotten used to being alone. Logan pulled me into a hug, whispering, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at you. Logan, I was the one who was wrong. I was wrong from the very beginning. Back then, Logan said my dad was just fooling me. He told me not to believe him, but I believed it, choosing to marry Leo. At that time, Logan told me over the phone, Ella, don't be foolish. Leo is a complicated person, you can't handle him. I said, it's okay, it's just about benefits between us, no love. On the other end of the call, he stared at me, silent. He hung up without a word and sent me a message. He knew I liked Leo, so he kept cautioning me. But I didn't listen and stepped into it anyway. Eventually, I fell into a bottomless abyss. Logan stayed in the guest room, always keeping me company. He knew I had no money and didn't dare use the money my mom left. So, he helped me buy some household items. All these years, he's taken care of me, like taking care of a sister. Logan got word that someone in his family was planning to sell some shares. Coincidentally, that person was an old friend of my mom's. He arranged a meeting for me and accompanied me to see them. While touching up my makeup, I ran into Anna in the restroom. She saw me and paused. Then she asked, Ella, do you know why Leo never loved you all these years? I stopped wiping my hands and looked back at her. Coincidentally, she was also looking at me through the mirror. She curled her lips into a smile, lightly chuckling. Because you're just a nanny, you can't provide him with any emotional value, but I can. She finished her sentence. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I took 2 steps forward, stood right in front of her, and asked, what value can you offer him? An old, washed-up first love, or someone else's child? Maybe she didn't expect me to be this aggressive. She was at a loss for words. After about 3 seconds of silence, she said, you might not know, but we saw you the day you had your miscarriage. It's just that Leo, Before she could finish, I heard a noise behind me. I turned around to see Logan punching Leo in the face. Leo staggered back a bit before standing firm. Seeing his clenched fists, I ran up and stood in front of Logan. Leo's fist stopped just 2 centimeters behind me. His eyes were filled with disbelief. I looked back at him, then at Anna standing not far away. I asked the burning question stuck in my chest. Leo, do you know what I was doing the day you were with Anna having her baby? He looked at me, frowning slightly, and replied, didn't you go to your dad's place? I lowered my eyes and said yes, and then added, not only did I go to my dad's, but I also had a miscarriage. And you were with Anna having her baby. Anna said you saw me at the hospital. So Leo, ask yourself, why didn't you come and check on me? He froze, taking a step back in disbelief. He stammered, I really didn't know you were pregnant. It's not important now. None of it is important. Even Anna knew, but he didn't. All it took was a little attention, or some checking. I looked at Anna from a distance and then at the child in the nanny's arms. I laughed and said, you 3 look more like a family. You and I were just getting by together. Logan pulled me away, rolling his eyes at Leo. I leaned against the wall, feeling the pain in my heart. It took a long while to get over it before I went back to the private room. To secure the shares, I drank cup after cup. Logan grabbed my hand, quietly trying to persuade me. But I wouldn't listen. This was something I had to get. When it was time to leave, I was so drunk I could barely stand. Then I saw Leo waiting at the door. He reached out and grabbed my wrist as soon as he saw me, while Logan held my other hand. Leo said to me, "I'm sorry. I really didn't know. Ella, can you forgive me?" I looked up at him with my hazy eyes. I gave a slight smile and said, "Leo, I'm so tired. So please, don't let me see you again. I'm begging you." Logan helped me away. I didn't look back, nor did I want to see Leo again, because it didn't matter anymore. None of it mattered anymore. Starting from that day, Leo began to sit outside my building every day and night. I watched him from upstairs. I had never seen him so worn out in all these years. Logan teased me, but I didn't take it to heart. I went back to my room by myself. I couldn't sleep well at night, so I eventually went downstairs. Seeing me, he looked overjoyed. He started saying, "I sent Anna away. From now on, it'll just be us, okay? We'll have a child." This made me laugh. I looked up at him. I couldn't understand the emotions in his eyes. Maybe he regretted being with Anna for her childbirth. Or maybe he regretted not coming with me to my dad's that day. Or maybe he just felt sorry for the child that never had a chance. But I didn't want to understand anymore. I took a step back and said, "Leo, don't come anymore. We're already divorced." He reached out to grab me, but I dodged. His hand hung in the air. "I really liked you, a lot, but that was the past. If we meet in business someday, just treat me like a stranger, for both our sakes." With that, I turned and walked away. When Leo drove off, I breathed a sigh of relief. He hadn't eaten or slept day and night, sitting under my building. I was afraid he'd pass out down there. Then it'd still be my problem. When Logan saw me come in, he clicked his tongue. "Still can't let go." I said nothing, closed the door, took off my coat, and hung it on the rack. Logan knocked on the contract on the table. I glanced at it and opened it. Logan had helped me buy back a 3% stake. This was my first step into the family business. My father had taken the family business for himself, but all of it originally belonged to my mom. I couldn't let it fall into the wrong hands. Logan leaned against the table casually and raised an eyebrow at me, not going to thank me. I said, "I'll go get changed and treat you to dinner." On the way, Logan talked endlessly, from astronomy and geography to poetry and songs. I smiled and followed him silently. He kept talking to himself. Words poured out of him. When we got back, I saw Anna in the garage. She ran at me like a crazy person, grabbing my hair before I could react. She kept asking if I gave Leo some kind of charm to make him send her away. I tried to calm her down. Logan didn't dare go forward, afraid she'd hurt me with the sharp object in her hand. Anna's eyes were red, and she looked at me helplessly. I said softly, "Anna, if you love Leo so much, why didn't you marry him and instead married someone else?" She said, "I didn't love him that much." Right, she didn't love him as much as his current status. When they first fell in love, Leo wasn't in charge of the Lin family. He fought his way up, overcoming countless obstacles. But during those tough times, Anna chose to marry someone else. Some unstable rich second-generation man. "So, Anna, it was you who abandoned him first, but he has nothing to do with me now. I don't want him anymore." I turned to look at Anna, who was glaring at me viciously. After a while, I added, "If you want him, go chase him yourself. If you don't let go of me, Logan will call the police." I wasn't sure which part she heard, but she released my hair and stared blankly at me. I knew her situation wasn't easy. Her husband had abusive tendencies. Initially, she wanted to use Leo to escape her misery, but later, she wanted Leo for herself. I walked toward Logan. He looked at my head, gently rubbing it, and asked, "Does it hurt?" "No," I replied. We were silent on the way home. Once we got there, I couldn't hold on any longer. I was so exhausted. I didn't want to take another step. Logan supported me, and I leaned on his shoulder, whispering, "Logan, I'm so tired." He said, "It's okay to take a break." But I couldn't take a break. My dad was about to marry his mistress. I used the money my mom left to buy shares. At first, I had to find those shareholders and persuade them. Seeing that I was young and a girl, they made things difficult for me. Later, they came to me, willing to sell at the lowest price. I knew Leo must have done something behind the scenes, but as long as he didn't come to me, I wouldn't seek him out. I accepted these favors from him. When I had everything ready, my dad called me, sounding very weak. He said, "Ella, come see your dad one last time." I didn't know if this was some trick. I was uneasy, unsure if it was true. Logan suggested he could come with me. On the way, I considered many possibilities, but it never crossed my mind that my dad might have cancer. When I saw him, I could hardly believe it. The once chubby old man was now all skin and bones, heart-wrenching to look at. And it was only just a year. I didn't meet his mistress, or his so-called son. Anything valuable in the house had already been sold. He lay on the bed with an A4 in his hand. The family doctor told me, "Miss, the boss just wants to see you one last time before he goes. He said he should give things back to you." Yes, he should give them back to me. The year my mom died was on my 10th birthday. After my dad cheated, the house was filled with endless fights. She got severe depression. Sometimes, she lost control and wanted to take me with her. Afraid to hurt me, she wore a wedding dress and slit her wrists when she was clear-headed. The blood turned the water in the bathtub red, and with her last bit of consciousness, she called for me. But I didn't hear her. That day, my dad carried her downstairs, and I held her hand and said, "Mom, you have to wake up and celebrate my birthday with me, okay?" She never woke up again. She loved my dad so much that she lost herself. She gave in to him completely. I sat by the bed, looked at the man lying there, and asked softly, "Do you regret it?" He said, "No, I can't regret it. Ella, Dad is going to see Mom now." Hearing those words, I laughed suddenly. Tears poured from my eyes, and I wiped them away only for more to follow. After a long pause, I said softly, "She doesn't want to see you. The person she hated most in life was you. Don't go looking for her. Don't disturb her peace." Before I finished speaking, I saw his eyes close. In my memory, they once loved each other, but over time, they grew tired of each other. My mom complained that my dad came home late. My dad complained that my mom's cooking was too salty. Small arguments turned bigger, leading to his affair, her miscarriage, and finally, the total breakdown of their relationship. Day by day, they grew weary of each other. While she was alive, she would always say, "Ella, find a good man to marry. Don't love someone like a moth flying into the flame like I did." Remembering this, I realized I had already married Leo. So love-struck thinking could be inherited. I thought of this and smiled, slowly standing up. I told Logan, "No need for an appointment, my dad's gone. So everything must return to the beginning." I heard that after my dad got sick, she just wanted to take more advantage. Started selling off valuable belongings at home. She didn't take good care of him either. And that child wasn't even his. So he decided to give everything to me, feeling it didn't matter who it went to. Hearing this from the lawyer, I faintly smiled. The woman he cherished all those years, and wanted to give everything to, had a child with someone else. What a joke. In the end, I signed the inheritance papers. On the way back, Logan and I went to the supermarket. We saw Leo coming from a distance. Logan wrapped his arm around my waist, leaned down, and whispered in my ear, "Ella, don't move." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Leo's eyes were red, his fists clenched tightly. He stood there motionless. After 2 minutes, Logan let me go and greeted Leo. Leo approached, grabbed my wrist, and said, "We need to talk." I glanced at Logan, feeling unsure, but finally nodded. We stood silently in the quiet stairwell. I was thinking that if we stayed silent any longer, I'd just walk away. Before I could figure out how to leave gracefully, Leo asked, "Do I have no chance?" I didn't answer, just looked at him. I used to really like him, the kind of like that surpassed my love for myself, but that was in the past. I lowered my head, gave a small smile, and said, "Leo, that was all in the past. Let it just stay there." The light in his eyes dimmed a bit, and in the end, he just said okay in a hoarse voice. When I left, Logan was standing outside waiting for me. He seemed to breathe a sigh of relief when he saw me come out. He walked beside me without saying a word. He didn't say a single thing in the car either. When we got to my house and I was about to get out, he locked the car door. I looked back at him and asked, "What's up? Would you consider being with me?" His direct question left me stunned. I stared at him, trying to see if he was joking. Logan had never been serious when he talked, not since we were kids. But no matter how I looked, he was dead serious, not a hint of a joke. He even repeated, "Ella, I like you. Would you consider being with me?" "I'm sorry." I lowered my gaze and said softly, "We've known each other for over 20 years, and I don't have any feelings for you beyond friendship." Yeah, we had known each other for 24 years, way too long. The love was the kind you have for family. All these years he had been good to me. I thought it was because my dad didn't care, and I had no mom, so he took care of me. I never imagined that he liked me. "Okay," he said. Then he gave a small smile. "I asked you to wait for me, but you got married first. You don't like me." The car went silent. 2 minutes later, he added, "Will you see me off when I leave?" I looked up at him, patted his shoulder, and said, "I'll see you off, and when you come back for the holiday, I'll treat you to a big meal." On the day he left, I went to the airport to see him off. I watched him go through security. Then I drove back to our old high school. It was just letting out. The kids were chasing and playing, just like we did at that age. A girl was walking behind a boy, keeping some distance between them. She was just following his steps, head down, one step at a time. Seeing that scene, it reminded me of my younger self. I guess I was like that back then. I used to follow Leo, without hoping he'd ever look back at me. Now he was right next to me, but I no longer chased him. Maybe some people are just not meant to be together. Being together would be torture. The alarm went off with a ding. Love isn't all there is to life. From now on, I need to carefully choose how to live my life. Instead of going back, I have to look forward, no turning back. Things from the past that you can't let go of, they will eventually be let go.